Are we ready to start? Can I have my presentation very quickly? Hello, Mr. Ioannidis, Professor Ioannidis, just on time. I think it's better to leave the door open, just in case other people might pop in. Okay, so this is a panel organized by the UNFCCC Global Innovation Hub. Masaba will be joining us in a bit. I just want to thank them for being amazingly crucial in this process of co-designing solution pathways. And I'm very happy to organize this session under the auspices of Masaba's Global Climate Hub. So this is a session about how we quantify our way towards sustainability, including, of course, climate neutrality and climate resilience, and how do we finance the transition towards the goals of climate neutrality and climate resilience. And I have an amazing panel here to talk about all of this. And I'm going to introduce each one when their turn to come in and say and give us their contribution. But we will quickly say that we have a video from Gabriela Ramos, Assistant Director General for the Social and Human Sciences at UNESCO. We will gonna figure out whether that video will be played at the end, given time constraints. And then we have some people that are, I consider friends, and they are people that are very important. It can play, that's very good, that are very important in this transition. So on this screen, you can see me, but maybe you can also show my presentation. I have a very, a bird's eye view of the Alliance of Excellence. Can you put my presentation on for research and innovation on IFORIA, sustainability? And the main thing we do is that we put together different research and innovation institutions and science policy networks that are led, directed, co-chaired by myself and other colleagues that have a very explicit task to do. To measure where we are with regards to sustainability implementation and develop the pathways that will get us where we want to go. Where we want to go is our policy targets, which are explicitly set. And between the two layers, where we are and where we want to go, a lot of modeling takes place, both mathematical but also stakeholder co-design modeling, in order to identify the optimal mixture of technologies, policies, and fiscal and financial instruments that will get you to the policy targets. It's a complicated policy network. I don't want you to be able to figure out what is going on here on the slides. But again, I'm going to use the bird's eye view with regards to global policies, global initiatives, and regional initiatives that are guiding with an explicit regulatory and legal framework our targets. Now, in order to achieve what is there, the SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the 169 targets within them, In order to achieve the European Green Deal, climate neutrality 2050, protection of human life and ecosystem, clean tech leadership by Europe, and leave no one behind. In order to achieve the climate law, the Fit for 55, the EU taxonomy, the nature restoration law, and so on, all these policies and laws, you first need to know where you are. And this is where quantification and measurement takes place. And this is a report that the Sustainable Development Solutions Network is producing every year. I lead the Global Climate Hub of this network, and it's a report of about 300 indices that measure where each and every country stands with regards to each and every SDG and each and every target within the SDGs. And we know we are lagging behind, but we know where we are. And we know where we are with regards to each of the systems, the land use systems, the food production systems, the marine systems, the climate system, the water system. And we can downscale this information from global to European or other regional level. We have for other regions in the world, also to sub-national level, and also to within sub-national regions, to companies, to institutions, and so on. So one thing that is important is quantifying where you are. The other thing that is important is from where you quantify how you are gonna reach your targets, the policy targets that I've shown you at the beginning. And this is what we've devised here. We devised an integrated systems approach to developing climate neutrality and climate resilience pathways that brings together the mathematical modeling that is needed to figure out what is the optimal combination of energy sources for your energy system, what is the optimal combination of technologies for your mobility system, land use system, marine use system, health system, and integrate everything into the socioeconomic system and the finances system. And while doing the mathematical modeling, constantly co-designing with stakeholders in order to engage them in a discussion of what are the problems, what are the solutions, how we refine the pathways that science gives us. And finally, everything is kept together in a digital platform, the data, the models, the outcomes, the tools, the visualizations. And this data is being put together under the Global Climate Hub by a team of very experienced digital and computer scientists and big data analysts and software and digital infrastructure developers, which is led by Professor Ioannidis, who is just sitting there. Just make yourself present. Okay, now I will stop here, but I'm gonna touch on 2 points. First point, we need to value ecosystems. They need to have a monetized value. It's not just produce capital and human capital that needs a price. Ecosystem services need a price, and we have a methodology for that. Cultural services need a price, and we have a methodology for that. So imagine that all of the SDG achievement calculation is integrated with knowledge of the values of the ecosystem services and the cultural services and the social values that are important to be integrated. And finally, figure out how you're gonna finance the pathways. Not only knowing the price of different alternative pathways, not only knowing the value, how social value increases as you implement the different pathways, the mixture of technologies and policies, but also being able to help, support the vulnerable, those that cannot pay for the transition. In the developed world, this can be supported by the national fiscal space, because developing countries have fiscal space, and they also have the ability to attract private funding in this exercise. So you can devise packages of measures to finance this. For developing countries, emerging economies, you need to create fiscal space. You need to streamline finance. As we know, this is the finance COP. So it's about time we talk about the restructuring of global financial architecture to find the way to provide SDG stimulus, climate neutrality and resilience stimulus financing that is reasonable. Long-run maturities, low interest rates, using swaps that are dependent on the wealth of nature and biodiversity of these countries. And also finding a way for the private sector to see the wealth of opportunities that are hidden in the developed world that can facilitate the massive deployment of sustainability solutions. I talk too much. Can we see the video from Gabriela, please? And then in our panel, we have Andrei, Geica. I always have a problem. He's a very good friend, but I always have a problem with his surname. He's Chief Impact and Policy Officer of SPOROS. This is a VC focused on sustainability. Sergio Fernandez de Cordova. He's the CEO of Public Foundation, a very impact-driven family office foundation that does a lot in the sustainability spectrum, and has a very strong partnership with the UN. Arvea Marieni, a long-lasting friend, again, Director of Ecological Transition Solutions at B&Q. Markus Müller, Chief Investment Officer of ESGs at the Deutsche Bank. Ketan Patel, Chairman of Force for Good and co-founder of Greater Pacific Capital. And of course, Serageldin Carpenter, who is working with on that. Serageldin, we work a lot through Ketan, but again, I don't have the exact affiliation. Sorry, Serageldin. So, Gabriela.
It's a pleasure to be here at the COP29, especially as we build on the recent outcomes of the Pact of the Future Summit. There, we confronted how much work remains to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, especially when it comes to environmental and social sustainability. The summit reinforced a critical understanding. We can't continue measuring progress solely on the base of production and consumption levels. Traditional metrics like GDP simply don't capture the whole picture, and I would say it even distorted. We need indicators that reflect broader impacts on people and the planet of our actions. And within UNESCO's social and human science sector, the Management of Social Transformation Program is looking exactly at this challenge. MOST is working not only to develop new metrics, but also to integrate environmental and social impacts into decision-making in an ex-ante manner. These concerns need to be part of the process from the outset and not addressed as an afterthought. because we should not be waiting to fix the issues that the policies create. Instead, we must prevent the damage by embedding sustainability and equity into decision-making from the very start, and particularly our financial and economic decisions. And this is precisely the message carried by UNESCO Inclusive and Resilient Societies report. The need to move beyond an old idea of equity versus efficiency in economic policies. Instead, it calls for equity and sustainability to be on par from efficiency and productivity, and from the start, both in how we analyze issues and how we design policies. And by doing so, we can better shape the ecosystems we all rely on. Today, the pursuit of progress still comes too often at the expense of both nature and social well-being. By embracing a more balanced framework, we can steer decision-making toward respecting better our environment and our communities. And this is the future we envision, a world where progress reflects not just economic gains, material well-being, but also the resilience of our planet and the cohesion of our societies. And it happened in the Summit of the Future that we also consider the rights and responsibilities towards future generations. The next report to be published at the end of the year also follows this direction, helping governments assess the distributional impact of climate policies. By revealing how different communities and income groups are affected, we aim to promote the climate policies that are fair and beneficial for all members and societies. And this is also linked to the Declaration on the Ethics of Climate Change, because at UNESCO we're also very focused on embedding the ethical framework on all the science and technological developments, on all the issues that we want to address, pushing for inclusiveness, but also for equity. Focusing on accountability also extends beyond climate issues, because under the leadership of the International Sustainability Standards Board, frameworks are being developed to bring accountability into the metrics. We need a similar push to address inequality, because these things are compounded. And in my role as co-chair of the Task Force on Social-Related Financial Disclosures, I'm also working to create tools that show how business decisions impact society, addressing challenges like gender equality, human rights, fair labor practices, and putting that together into the economic performance of the business sector. And our approach is comprehensive, aiming to go beyond isolated metrics to create an integrated perspective where these indicators reinforce one another. So my message today is that metrics should not only quantify sustainability, they should also show who is impacted and how. But we can neither stop there. Tracking progress towards the SDGs requires more than metrics and numeric targets. It calls for a deeper understanding of how our actions can shape a just, inclusive, and sustainable world. In closing, our goal should be to embrace a holistic approach that balances all these elements: our environment, our social fabric, our economic factors, with ethics as a guiding principle. We must avoid working in silos and instead aim for an integrated perspective where frameworks and metrics, analytical approaches, narratives support each other without becoming the central focus. To achieve this, it is essential not only to develop the right metrics, but also to cultivate people-centered policies that, as I said, prioritize equity and well-being at the heart of our efforts.
Okay, so let me open my microphone. And I'm going to ask you, Sergio. So Gabriela says it's about the sustainable interaction of nature, the economy, and society, and making that efficient over time and over space and equitable. Give us a half-minute introduction to PVBLIC, and then tell us what we are doing with regards to the Data Alliance, and how that Data Alliance is going to give us the information we need for all that Gabriela is looking for.
Thank you, Professor. and esteemed panelists and attendees, thank you for this opportunity. The Data Alliance is a program that was started about 7 years ago, was really a focus on how are we setting the benchmarks and the baselines, number one, to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, number two, to then look at the multilateral space in governments and how are we actually equipping them today with the latest technology so they can actually also meet their commitments that they've made to the planet and have the ability to measure, right? We talk about a lot, we're gonna be talking about here measurement, but also then how does that play a role into their geospatial national priorities, right? Because, you know, when you look at it, it's not just SDG Data Alliance, we're talking about data as a whole. We at Public Foundation, one of our 3 pillars is data. We believe that data is not only a human right, it's a geospatial sovereign right, as well as it's an asset class that helps us not only look at how we protect nature by measuring her, how we protect our environment by quantifying it, and how we are bringing the tools and the latest technologies. AI transformed our world about literally a year ago today, right? Right around this time, all of a sudden everybody had these tools in their hands, but yet governments were looking at this technology and this innovation and saying, I want this, I need this, but they had no baseline. If you look at the future quantum and AI, it's based on data, right? But then when you look at all these governments, they have no capacity, they have no institutions helping them, and they have only technology companies over the top. So with the work that we're doing is it's a bottom-up approach that we could meet the top-down evolution. And we believe that these things are necessary so that we could protect Mother Nature. But when you look at nature, you know, I like to educate people in the family offices that we work with. We say, if you look at climate, climate's software. If you look at nature, nature's hardware. So if we're not protecting our hardware, how are we protecting our software? Our software is going to be corrupt, right? So if we really can understand that, then what are we doing to protect nature? Well, we need the data. And that's really one of the fundamental beliefs and core principles of what Public Foundation focuses on. Thank you.
Excellent. And at Deutsche Bank, how do you create a nature bond or a sustainability bond or an SDG bond? How much do you depend on data? And how do you function as the interface between what the data tells you, what you can create as an instrument, a financial instrument, and what you can communicate to the client in order to make him or her interested in the product?
Yeah, so very good question. So we now will spend 2 hours on debunking this a little bit, but joking aside, we have to differentiate at 2 sides. And this is not the case just as Deutsche Bank, where I'm from, in general. So first, we need to understand what it means for the investors. And on the other side, it means for us as a bank who is lending money through the balance sheet to the one who wants to take the capital. So we need to differentiate between the 2. Secondly, we have to understand that we always and ever have done as humans that we deal with data. Every morning when we wake up and when we make a decision, we deal with data, but data which we already have based on our personal heuristic, based on all the stuff. So the data question is nothing new, and I'm always surprised that we discuss at COP data. It is just something what we currently have not defined, but that we use data at markets for making investment decision is as old as humanity. So this is...
Yes, but now we have access to lots of data.
Exactly, but it is not that we now have found out during COP that we need data. No, this is clear from the beginning that we need data. Hence, we should stop talking about that we need data. We rather should say what kind of data we need for what kind of purpose. So this means we are still not clear about which finance tool is fitting to which purpose. Just to be very extreme, carbon credits won't solve all of our problems. They just will be a tool for a specific problem we have. So now and then coming to the third part, if we have defined that we know that we need data, then we have defined which tool is for which goal. We have developed a framework which exactly considers these 2 things. So what we have at Deutsche, we have a green finance framework. The Green Finance Framework defines for which activity we need to know which data. And the data we need from the client in order to make a decision whether the price for the finance goes up or goes down. And this is then available to our investors who can decide it's attractive for me or not. And then you have the plethora of derivatives of it, from a sustainable linked bond to a KPI linked bond to an outcome bond or to a specific tailor-made finance transaction. And this must just reflect the underlying. And the challenge we currently face in our world is that we do not have or do not use the data we have appropriately. And here I completely agree, we now need to facilitate the infrastructure, and thanks God, alhamdulillah, we have now technology which can now help us, which wasn't able to help us before. So this is something what we should here discuss at COP. How do we now get the business done in order to get the finance flowing? And not always saying that we need finance. This is, for me, something which is not to be discussed. This is completely already a done deal that we need finance. So, long story short, this is how we do this. We need a framework in order to know what we want to achieve and then looking for the right data, and the underlying must provide this data in order to get there.
And are your clients interested in sustainability solutions?
So we just published last night, so in European time, a survey. So the fourth survey we conduct across the 23 million clients of Deutsche Bank's private bank. And the majority of the clients, especially in Europe, they want to increase their share in ESG sustainable parts of their portfolio. So all this backlash and this discussion is just happening in the headlines. It is not happening on the ground. We neither see a backlash in the real economy nor in the interest of the investor, although they want to have clarity about what it is. But clarity doesn't mean that they are not interested. It's exactly the opposite. If someone requires more definitions, it is not ignorance, it is exactly the opposite, it's interest. And hence I say they are far more interested in it because they are far more educated, and therefore they request far more details.
I agree 100% with the last statement for sure. Ketan, this is the era of sensors, of satellite data, of in situ data. This is the era of ability with regards to modeling relationships, to identifying correlations. We have the methodological and technical tools. We have the data to measure what we need. Your work at Force for Good, how does it facilitate the discussion on what we need, and how and what is the result of your analysis with regards to the funding gap? What money do we need in order to implement the SDGs, in order to implement climate neutrality and resilience among the SDGs, and where is it coming from?
So Phoebe, as you know, there's enough money to fund anything. There's $650 trillion or so of money, of which 430 trillion is liquid and managed by financial institutions. So the money is there. But the money is not designed to flow to where need is. It flows to where there are profitable markets. So it does not feel that risk-reward is best served by going to where the need is, because the need is not a market, it's a need. And so we have a divorce between the reality of the need in the world and where the money is. Walking through COP, what I saw was in every corridor it says, keep right. And the public voted to keep right. This year, half the world voted, and they voted largely to stay right and away from climate change. No one voted for climate change to be solved. That doesn't mean that they don't believe there's a climate issue, but it means that it doesn't matter whether it was in a developing country or a developed country, even the richest countries in the world, they voted against incumbents and they voted for prosperity, but really just to make ends meet. So I think the thing we're not measuring is are we satisfying the aspirations, the development and prosperity aspirations of the mass public of the world? And clearly 2/3 of the world are not satisfied. They live in the global south and the money has not flown to them. And the rich have got rich by spending all this money. So what we analyze at Force for Good in quite a lot of depth is the flow of money, capital flows, and capital and how it can be a force for good. And we analyze technologies and how technologies can be a force for good. On the first, what we find is financial institutions are investing between $2.5 to $4 trillion every year in the SDGs in some form. But if you analyze which SDGs and which countries, it's usually in rich countries because that's where they feel they get a return for the risk that they want to take. It's not in the poorer countries at all. Those are not part of their mandate. So this $430 trillion doesn't feel it has a mandate to flow to where the need is. We analyze that a lot. It's a very deep report analyzing this flow of money. But it identifies the solutions which exist. They exist mainly in the north and the west. And these solutions can solve the problem. The solutions are owned in 3 ways. One are policy solutions. You know a lot about that. You've worked a lot on that. 2 are private sector solutions, which a lot of the panel understand too. These private sector solutions are serving markets where it's profitable. And the 3rd is a huge amount of government spend, which, if it was green, would already start to close the gap. The technology solutions, interestingly, we identify 19 technology solutions, which the top 100 companies pursue. There's a fierce competition to win in these 19 because they will define the future. They include things like AI and data analytics and quantum computing and fusion and drones and so on. But all of it is being deployed really in the north of the world. So one of the things I would say we need to measure, which we don't measure very well enough, is whether prosperity is being created for the world at large. And so social inclusion is not happening. Social exclusion is increasing in the richest countries. And so what you have within the richest countries is a developing world developing inside the richest countries. And they will not vote, therefore, for climate change until we start to measure that and fix that. So we have a competition between the two today.
Yeah. We have to put into the picture the social value and make sure that it is monetized and integrated and rewarded for when it is created. I always enjoy reading your report every year. I wait for it every year.
It's you who reads it.
Arvea, you have a solution. You have an applied solution that is holistic and integrated, and you're going to show us.
I'm going to show you, first of all, we all have parts of solutions. What we try to do as a company which is a strategic partner of Dassault Systèmes, Dassault is a large French company, we do digital twins, but not in the way that people are used to think of the digital twins. Digital twins in the common perceptions are visualization tools. Those are process-led, those are industry-led. The gentleman from Deutsche Bank was talking about data. We got plenty of data. We do not decide beforehand what sort of data we need and what is the end case. That's the main issue. The second issue that the gentleman, excuse me, Ketan was mentioning, Markus, was mentioning, is that we need to, again, eco-design the values of things. So we're using these digital twins, and we applied at scale at the École Polytechnique, which is the largest polytechnical school in France. It's co-managed by the defense. Our ministry, our solutions are co-developed in public procurement of innovation. Another point Ketan made, public money, fundamental, if we want to accelerate the transition. 14% of European GDP goes into public procurement. We are managing in full life cycle the whole campus of the École Polytechnique, which is managing 350 million euros. Our solution is managing 350 million euros that are destined by the government under the recovery plan for the ecological transition, energy, and integrating other resources. That's why it is holistic. And we did it using and putting in the hierarchy and ontology of the digital twin, a methodology which I believe, I'm working on methodologies as well, is the strongest for measuring environmental sustainability and integrated social sustainability. This is absolutely in line with the work, the SDGs work that Phoebe and Arvea are doing. And this is the product environmental footprint, which is an extremely enhanced, it's developed in Europe, 15 years of work by the GRC, the platforms of stakeholders. It is an extremely enhanced integrated LCAs, which is also putting in the system, you give value to resources. That's the trick. You price resources and you switch from CapEx to OpEx. You keep the CapEx because you need the financial. The bank is also for the monetization and for the bankability of the projects. And you were asking me where we apply it. We are applying it to city. Already the campus is 250,000 square meters and is a complex small city of 250,000 people. What cities? We started working on a site, on an industrial site, Michelin site, outside of Vannes, which is in a city in Brittany region. The site has to be phased out, so there is some money for the conversion. Michelin is going to co-fund a part of this. The Vannes, the city agglomeration, is going to co-fund it. And we are not only operating on the site, which is 60 hectares, but we're also integrating the agglomeration, the urban spaces. Why? Because if you're remodeling the social environment, the economic environment, how you will place certain businesses in a certain place, and of course the energy demands, and of course the water and resource demands, you need to have the supply chain. And we are doing it. The digital twin, I will show you a very, very short video, it's 2.5 minutes. The first part is marketing, you ignore it. The second part goes on the description of the site itself. Thank you for the video. Say that we won the European Innovation Procurement Award this year. This is Van, this is our office, this is the team. We got 19 employees, those are engineers and technicians. That is marketing, but we were happy to be at the COP as well. The principles. We take, exactly as Phoebe says, the holistic approach. And we try to integrate it in the hierarchy, and we do actually do it. By the way, around Paris, we brought down on a construction site of a large construction companies, one of the largest in France, of 35% GHG emissions. You know that we've got a law against greenwashing in Europe. Green declarations have to be truthful. We measured that. Minus 35% on the construction site on scope 1 without changing the technologies. And this is completely in line. This is the secret. This is the full life cycle of the processes. This is the model for the weighting of the procurement system that we did. And this is the site. The procurement system is basically integrating all the KPIs that we quantified And we use the traditional Directive 2014 for public procurement in Europe because we have to operate according to the law. We just integrate alongside the traditional KPIs those climate and environmental quantified. This is going to be finished. You can cut it if it is too long, but it's very, very close to the end. The technology we use is the 3D experience, or 3D experience by the system. Full life cycle management is allowed because there is the professor knows technology. One source of truth, only one data repository, is complete, secure, and cyber secured, is European cloud. Its system is military protected. And we do the same thing, integrating also the suppliers through systems that we can exploit on another occasion.
Thank you very much, Arvea. Andrei, why is SPOROS VC different from the other VCs? I know I work with you, but
Also,
let us...
A bit difficult to follow a 3D presentation like that, and all of the explanations, I don't have bells and whistles to show. Well, we have some money. We try to be one of those people that redirect the flows of money to sustainability and impact. So we are a 45 million Article 9 fund focused on circular economy. For those who don't know, in the European Union, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation categorized all the financial intermediaries in Article 6, which are those who don't really care about impact in their investment decisions. Article 8, which are those who promote sustainability in their impact decisions. And Article 9, who have sustainability and impact as a core objective of their investment decisions. And those who are Article 9 then have to choose a sustainability objective from the EU taxonomy, and we chose circular economy because for us, in 2050, the circular economy will simply be known as the economy, because without a circular economy, there's absolutely no way to achieve the 1.5 degree goal. At the same time, we also deal mostly with the smallest element of the chain, of the policy-making chain from COP all the way down, because we deal with SMEs. Our logic is that the SMEs are the ones that are least catered for by the traditional financial system, while at the same time they are the main components of the economy. In Europe, this figure is 99.8%. So you can't talk about a transition to a circular economy unless you talk about the main components of the economy, which are SMEs. In our portfolio construction, we have 30% funds dedicated for startups with innovative solutions, but 70% is dedicated to SMEs. And I think that what sets us a bit apart from others is the value of expertise. There are still many funds who are suddenly sustainability funds, but their teams are exactly the same as before they made the shift to a sustainability fund. So, you know, where's the knowledge that underpins that shift? In our case, we integrate sustainability in absolutely every part of our process. So we have a sustainability due diligence questionnaire that is part of the sustainability due diligence process together with the legal and financial due diligence process. This informs the risk assessment report that then informs the investment thesis on the basis of which the investment committee actually takes decisions. We also have a circular board that gathers thought and industry leaders from Greece. It's actually very close to the Nature Advisory Panel of Deutsche Bank. I wish Markus was still here. And at the same time, we also develop circular transition plans for each investee, showing them the pathway on how to get to a more circular business model in the limits of what's possible on a single SME. And then we establish KPIs that are specific for each investees on top of the KPIs that we have at fund level. And here our collaboration with Euphoria and Phoebe's team of experts is absolutely fundamental. Because the idea here, and this is probably the main message that I want to say, is that measurement, and that's why I'm very happy to be in this panel, measurement will become absolutely fundamental at this stage. Because after almost 10 years that we set the 1.5 climate goal and we sold people on this idea of a bright, beautiful future, it's time to actually show it. And the only way to show it is to measure it and to display it. So that's what we endeavor to do. We never talk to our companies, to our SMEs about saving the planet. We never talk to them about circular economy. We tell them, let's talk about saving costs. Let's talk about eliminating waste. Let's talk about becoming more efficient. Let's talk about selling or using secondary raw materials, reducing improving your bottom line. Let's talk about improving your bottom line and how to do that. Without mentioning SDGs, without mentioning circular economy principles, just for them to understand that this affects my bottom line in a very positive way. And in this way, I think, at the time when the public sector is running out of steam, because we've seen the elections of November 5th, we know what the consequences of that will be. We've seen also the backlash a bit in Europe, both on the streets and in the European elections, and that were mentioned also before. What's necessary now is private market competition. And we need to show that companies that have SDGs at their core are more profitable than those who don't. And this is what will keep us under 1.5 and how the money will flow more and more in this direction.
Exactly. So 2024, all large companies in Europe have to submit a quantified corporate sustainability report 2027, all companies, including SMEs. This is a revolution in the market, in the business sector, and it's happening now. So our quantification matrices should be refined and usable and massively deployed so everybody knows where they are and how they can make progress. Chandelier, you're the last because you're the most important. So why is quantification important and how does it support what you are doing?
So basically, I'd like to, thank you, Phoebe. I would like to pick up on where Ketan and others have left it. And basically, and Gabriela and you mentioned the Summit of the Future. Mm-hmm. The Secretary General in the context of the United Nations, in the context of the Summit of the Future, created a group of UNCTAD, DESA, and UNDP to work on measuring progress beyond GDP. Mm-hmm. And as long as we're going to measure progress only as GDP, which is the economic activities where you destroy the forest and it increase the GDP, we will not be including people. So basically, the Secretary General's tagline is measuring what counts, but measuring what counts for people, the people that elect these government. And so this whole idea of measuring GDP, progress beyond GDP is extremely important. GDP emerged out of the Great Depression. And it was a huge crisis, and then these economists got together to measure, to create national account because we could not even compare. The decision makers could not even make a decision because they didn't know what the economy looked like. And we couldn't even compare economies across because we didn't have a system of national account. And now we are facing other crises of climate change, biodiversity, inequality, pollution, and we're in the same period where we need a new metric. So that's my first point. The second one is one that to know, and I think, three of you have talked about, how do you bring the flow of capital to the countries that need it the most. To know that, you need a policy package at the country level to know what transition you're going to have, when you're going to need meet your net zero. Is it 30, 40, 50, 60, depending on your level of development? And then what's the policy path you're going to use to do that? And there's a lot of work has been done, but very little looking at the socio-economic impact of various transition pathways. And unless we do that and we don't leave people behind, we will not achieve the climate change goals that we have because we won't be able to put in place the policies that we need. And so this is the work that we're doing with the network of central bank on green finance. They've done these scenarios. And with McKinsey Sustainability, and we're putting together, and we're having a report presented in 2 days from now at the Trade and Investment House, with 15 countries, looking at the socio-economic impact of the net zero central bank's scenario compared to the current policies. So I invite all of you to follow, and hopefully we can all collaborate on this because this is so important.
Chandelier says, natural capital. Next one, with the stock exchange. I want to close next one. So Chandelier says natural capital should be measured and included in national accounts. So growth should be measured in a way that goes beyond GDP. It includes the value of nature. And then she says, and rightly so, we need to calculate the socioeconomic impact on different countries and different income groups of climate pathways and make sure we can support the vulnerable. I want to close with this slide. This is part of the work of the Global Climate Hub that I'm chairing. This is the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network Global Climate Hub, and we do a lot of analysis for the financial sector as well. And it shows very clearly in the blue line how much more profitable it is to invest in companies that invest against the risk of the SDGs. So each SDG has risk. If you hedge against those risks through your investments, you are going to create a company that has a higher value than any other strategic approach. So it is important to understand how value is created in markets and in the stock exchange through SDG investments, through climate investments, through ESG's investments, as we call them in Europe, environmental, social, governance investments. On that note, the markets are moving towards sustainability. The investors are interested in it. We are devising the quantifiable framework for supporting all of this. The politicians need to get aligned because people need this. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. You have been very kind. Do you want to talk to Sergio? You wanted to say something?